Hello and welcome to TV Cruise Channel's Guide to Cruising the Mediterranean. I'm Glenn Thompsett, and in this programme we're taking you on a journey of discovery to one of the most popular cruise regions with British holidaymakers. From the pristine beaches and ancient ruins of the Eastern Mediterranean to the artsy and flavourful countries of the Western Med. And here to guide us through those hotspots of the Mediterranean is our travel guru, Simon Calder. Simon, as always, nice to see you. This might surprise you, I've done all the Spanish islands, but never mainland Spain. What am I missing?
That is ridiculous, if you don't mind me saying so, Glenn. You're a young man, so there's plenty of time to discover these great places. Well, let's start in the pearl of the Western Mediterranean, which I think is Barcelona. The city which I think more than any other defines Spain in terms of its relaxed air, its incredible cultural wealth, particularly things like the Picasso Museum and the amazing Sagrada Familia, Antoni Gaudi's amazing modernist and unfinished temple. And yet it's so much more than that. It's a beach destination now. They've rediscovered that. It's a centre of Catalan culture, and you can find plenty of that wherever you are. And thankfully, it's also a tremendous cruise port with a wide range of departures, and somewhere I think really good to start or finish a cruise rather than just to make it a port of call, because there is so much to see that you probably want to build in a weekend before or a couple of days at the end of your cruise really to make the most of it. So if you were to say, where should I go in mainland Spain, Barcelona would be my number one recommendation.
Because you mentioned Spain to a lot of people, they think, oh, sun, sea and sangria, that's all there is to do. But if you're a culture vulture, it really has a lot to offer, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, and not just in Barcelona. I've just come back from a cruise which began in Barcelona, but then also called at Cartagena, which is on the south eastern side. So it used to be a tired old navy port, but it's suddenly come alive, had a lot of money poured into it, which has been used partly to refresh everything, make it look all sparkling and new. And it's in a sense, it's like a little bit of Barcelona, but without the crowds. And on top of that, they are just reclaiming this incredible history. Cartagena translates as New Carthage, and it was actually established long before the birth of Christ as a really important settlement. And you can see all the layers of history, and on top of that you can also get a really cheap and tasty cup of coffee and some tapas, and it's really relaxed compared with some of the busier places in Spain.
And the Roman theatre there as well.
Oh yes, it's an extraordinary, I mean, just so much history, so uncrowded, so accessible, and really friendly people. So a good place to include as a
So maybe something you could take in as on a port of call. What about nearby areas? I mean, Murcia, you've got Murcia there?
Yeah, so let me take you on a little tour around there.
Let's move away.
Murcia is the main city. That's the provincial capital in which Cartagena stands. Actually, Murcia Airport is significantly nearer to Cartagena than it is to Murcia, but that's a well worthwhile city. You've got inland the Mar Menor, the small sea, which is a fascinating place in terms of wildlife. And then going down the coast towards Andalusia, you've got Cabo de Gata, an astonishing place. You might think that there's kind of one great long line of development all the way from Barcelona down to Malaga and Marbella and beyond, all the way to Gibraltar pretty much. That's not true, but in particular it's not true around the Cabo de Gata, this amazing headland which is beautiful for walking, and furthermore has on either side a really kind of Spanish feeling town that hasn't yet been discovered by the international masses.
It's going to be a very popular place, isn't it, this year, what with all the recent terror activities going on in the further sort of Middle Eastern countries, I mean, Egypt and Turkey, if you like. People are going to places they know of old, places like Spain, places like, we discussed in a previous programme, America, Orlando, but talking today about Spain, it's going to be a very popular place, isn't it?
It is, and actually that's a really good reason for being on a cruise, Glenn, because what you're seeing with the amount of aviation capacity which has been switched into Spain, that actually you're not going to get the quality of accommodation that you would expect for the price you're going to have to pay. And so therefore, if you're on a cruise where your accommodation and indeed your meals are all already paid for, you're guaranteed sort of certain standards. So beginning or ending a cruise in Spain, whether that's in Barcelona or Palma or anywhere else, is a really smart move.
And again, if you're taking in that Mediterranean cruise, Simon, and stopping off somewhere like Barcelona, Spain, this part of Spain, how long are you there for typically?
Well, that all depends. There's so many dynamics at work. We've talked before about how I sense that they quite like getting you on board the ship and departing by about 6 p.m. so that your sundowner is going to be a drink that you enjoy in one of their bars at their prices with their gratuities added rather than by the shore. But it all depends on the length of the sector that they're next sailing. And you can, to be fair on the cruise industry, pretty much get an accurate picture to within an hour or so of how much time you're going to spend there. And I think that increasingly cruise lines will appeal to a certain type of person, I suspect very much you, if they stay just a little bit longer in somewhere like Cartagena. I
want to soak up that atmosphere more.
Yeah, it goes to sleep really between about 1 and 5, and then 5 o'clock wakes up. Everyone's suddenly on the streets. It's getting a sense of life back, and you're being told, no, you've got to get back on the ship. That's not very good.
That's much like me on holiday. I'm asleep between 1 and 5.
Exactly. So, I think to be able to spend a couple of extra hours is going to be a very valuable thing.
Let's move to Gibraltar then. Lots
good
to
idea.
see there in Gibraltar.
Extraordinary, yeah. So Gibraltar, as we know, is the amazing rock which is looking out across to Africa. And if you go to the far south of Gibraltar to Europa Point, where, by the way, there's a new mosque, which is an interesting place of interest. You can see Africa. There it is, just across the strait. One of the busiest maritime locations on Earth.
What's the distance then between the two?
I think at its narrowest, I'm going to say 10 miles, 16 kilometres. I might be a couple of miles wrong, but it's not very far. I wouldn't recommend that you try and swim it. Quite a lot of shipping traffic going through there. Great location, by the way, for wildlife. If you want to, for example, where the cruise port is, you can just walk into the marina from there very easily, and there's lots of little boats going out to see dolphins, whales. It's a really exciting thing to do. I've done that. But most people are going to go to Casemate Square, which is this big open area behind the defensive walls, and then start walking down Main Street, which is a bit like, I'm going to say it, a bit like going back 20, 30 years in Britain in terms of the feel of the place, but increasingly Gibraltar is getting more and more cosmopolitan. It's also opening up its great attractions, the incredible network of tunnels that exists within the rock. They were expecting invasions. They therefore have built incredible tunnels there. You can also walk over and around the rock on the Mediterranean steps, this astonishing age-old footpath that winds around the rock.
So much history, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and so many incredible views, and it's really quite a tough walk. Or you can do something which most people won't do in the course of a normal day: walk across a busy runway. Because just before the border with Spain, the runway kind of cuts across. It's on reclaimed land, and if there's an aircraft coming in, everyone's cleared out. They close the barriers, and you wait there until it lands or takes off, and then you carry on walking. And then it's not very far to get you into Spain, the interesting town of La Linea, where you can see the positions where, for example, the Germans in the Second World War were planning an invasion of Gibraltar. It never happened. Great long history there, but also the sense of being in Andalusia rather than being a suburb of Gibraltar. And a great beach. If you've got an hour or two at the end before you've got to go back to the ship, well worth stretching out there rather than on Gibraltar's modest beach, I would say. So
would you say this is a little hidden gem in a way? A forgotten gem?
Yeah, I think people who've been to Gibraltar maybe 10 or 20 years ago maybe don't realise quite how much there is there. And certainly until I was there recently, I hadn't properly appreciated how La Linea is very much a living, breathing city with great stuff to see, lovely places to eat and drink and so on, as well, of course, as being a gateway to the rest of Spain. And just across the border there's a busy bus station, and you can head up to Marbella or across to Cadiz, wherever you want to go.
Fantastic. And what about souvenirs, typical duty-free shopping? Are we talking some leather goods down there?
Yeah, well, Gibraltar, and one reason it is included in cruises, well, it's included because it's a great destination and people love being there, but it also has the effect, because it's outside the EU for customs purposes, although not for political purposes, you can pick up kind of genuine duty-free there. That's going to, if of course, cruise ships generally don't like you taking alcohol on board, or rather they don't mind you taking it on board, but they're immediately going to put it into a special location until you get off the ship. But there's lots of great leatherware. There's plenty on sale at really attractive prices on the main street, partly because there is no VAT, and so therefore things tend to be significantly cheaper. Or hop across the border to La Linea, go to the local market there. Absolutely fascinating. So
lots to see and do in that particular area then. Still lots to come, talking about Spain, of course. Stay with us right here, and we'll be back discovering more about cruising the Mediterranean with Simon in just a few minutes' time. Hello, nice to see you. Welcome back to TV Cruise Channel's Guide to Cruising the Mediterranean. Travel guru Simon Calder is still with me. Simon, let's talk Genoa.
Oh,
lovely place.
Me. Well, the heartland of the world in maritime terms. Of course, Italy being one of the great maritime nations, Genoa being the hometown of Christopher Columbus, who of course went on to find the New World, and astonishing destination in its own right. If you've not been lucky enough to go there, it's an amphitheatre of just teeming life. Now you come into the effectively city centre, which is pretty good these days. Somebody had the bad idea in the 60s or 70s of putting an elevated motorway between you and the city.
Why would they do that? I don't know.
But once you get past that barrier, you are in a place which, in gastronomic terms alone, you could stay for a week. Of course, this is the home of pesto. It's possible to eat extraordinarily well. Focaccia, I think they claim to have invented there. I don't care if they did or not, but I do know you have got so many places where you can just wander in off the street, €1 or €2, and you've got a lovely slab of focaccia bread with olives and anything you want. It's great. So eating aside, there's some astonishing set pieces. I love the market area, because that is, first of all, a really vibrant place to go. And if you get off the ship in the morning, I would head straight there just to see normal life being transacted. You have an enormous number of really interesting churches. Now, I happen to think that pretty much every Italian church has something to offer, but these are just feasts of extraordinary architecture that have been so lavishly fitted out. It is just walking into a Baroque fantasy. Sometimes you just feel that this is you've arrived in an ecclesiastical theme park. Add to that some really good architecture, and you'll just want to, you'll be thinking, what do I really have to get back to the ship? I want to stay here for days and days. Even the railway stations, you've got a couple of them, one at either end of the town centre, Puerto Principe and Brignole. Those are masterpieces of art, and of course you just wander into one and then suddenly, I could be in Naples by the afternoon. I could get a train across to Marseille. It's fantastic in terms of being a really inspiring place to be.
And depending on how long you're in port then, Simon, you could take that little drive to a place called Portofino.
You certainly could do. Now, the great thing about Genoa is that it's the hub of the Ligurian Riviera, and this is just a spectacular coastline with lovely places to see along the way. You've got, for example, La Spezia, a beautiful place, but Portofino is really, really special. You could hire a car and head down there. In the course of a day, I think you'd be pushed to do that, maybe, but of course the great thing is that many cruises begin and end in Genoa, so how lovely. And you could even do something sophisticated, such as flying into Pisa and then beginning a 2, 3, 4 day trip that's going to take you up the coast to Genoa, where you board your ship, or of course you could do it at the end of the run.
You've transported me there, Simon. I am there. I'm so there. Livorno. Did I say that right?
Livorno. Yeah, okay, so this is actually, talking of Pisa, a very, very popular port of call, because it's 15 miles or so from Pisa, and of course Pisa, home to one of the great icons of Italy, the Leaning Tower. And gosh, it is leaning. It's a great experience.
Is it leaning more so now? It is, isn't it? They say it's leaning a bit more than it used to.
It was leaning more and more and more and more and more. Then it closed for about 5 years, early in the 2000s, and they kind of anchored it, so it isn't going to move anymore.
Right.
It's a 5 degree tilt, which doesn't sound very much. If that's 90 degrees,
yes.
5 degrees, you just think it was a little bit off centre. But in fact, when you're walking up there, you really feel it.
You can really feel it.
Crucially, if you're going to the Leaning Tower, you need to plan in advance, and you need to see if you can get tickets in advance online for a particular time slot. Either that, or you just get there as early as you can and book your time slot for later in the day. I've done that very comfortably. You can get into Pisa on the train, get across to the tower, book the first slot that's available, and still get back in time for your sailing. But don't miss out on the rest of Pisa. It's actually a really civilised, beautiful Tuscan city, where once you get away from the field of miracles, as they call the place where the Leaning Tower is, along with the cathedral, then you will find that it's just a lovely atmospheric place to be.
So if you only have time to visit either Florence or Pisa, what would be top of your list?
Absolutely Pisa. Florence is an hour further, so that's in the course of a trip 2 hours extra travelling time, and Florence is wonderful, but you are absolutely not doing it justice if you are just there for typically 4 hours is what you might get there. Go and make a separate trip, go there for a weekend. That would be lovely. Let's talk a little bit now then about the port of Rome, which is Civitavecchia.
Civitavecchia.
Yeah, very, very well said. Okay, the thing is, the port of Rome isn't very near Rome, which is slightly inconvenient. It's whichever way you do it, even if you're an Italian, it's difficult to drive in less than an hour. The train, once you've found the station and bought your ticket and everything, is going to take you, unless you invest in one of the high-speed trains, it's going to take over an hour to get there. But Rome is a great place to start or end a cruise, again, because it's well worth investing a couple of days there properly to appreciate it. If you're just calling into Civitavecchia, then you might well want to consider an excursion, either one operated by the ship or one where they meet you at the ship and take you in and show you the best of Rome. Even a snapshot of Rome is going to amaze you, because of course this is a city which has 3,000 years of history.
Incredible history.
And life is still lived absolutely in the middle of one of the most, possibly the most important city in Europe.
Yes, absolutely. So it is worth taking a shore excursion for that, you would suggest, if you can. Yeah,
you could stay in Civitavecchia, wouldn't be bad. You could even do something, maybe you've been to Rome before and you've spent plenty of time there and you want looking for something different. Well, go to Ostia Antica. Now, that is on the way into Rome, and it's quite near to Leonardo da Vinci Airport, and it is the old port of Rome, and it is strewn with miracles. It is almost deserted, I've no idea why. I guess people go to Rome and they think, right, we're going to go to the Colosseum, we're going to go to the Forum. We're going to,
places.
Yeah, and they don't just get on the little suburban train and go out to Ostia Antica. That is a miraculous place and very accessible, and you can just think, I'm seeing something nobody else on my ship is seeing, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it.
How do you advise people to take in a bit more of that culture, a bit more of that sort of rich experience, rather than just going to the places that the operators point you into? How can you say to somebody, go that way, go that way?
Well,
people only stick to what they know, don't they?
It's a bit old school, but I'd say get a guidebook. If you have a guidebook, I mean, this is, for instance, how I mentioned earlier in the programme, the Mediterranean steps in Gibraltar. I just had a guidebook to Spain. I know Gibraltar isn't part of Spain, but it was in the book. And I just noticed a little reference to the Mediterranean steps. So I asked a couple of people locally and they said, yeah, it's great. Just do. And you will generally, if it's a well-researched guidebook from one of the major series, you'll find all these places there. And you can, with a good map, you can just think, okay, well, I'll check out Ostia Antica. And then, if you want to, you can have a look online and find out who's going to recommend a good guide to take me around there. And you might even find that he or she will meet you at the port and drive you down there and tell you all about it, set it all up. So there's great experiences to be had, and it's really up to you to make the most of them.
Just very quickly, Simon Calder, in the Mediterranean, where would be your favourite place?
I would have to say Naples. An astonishing city with a beautiful bay, an amazing history, and so much to enjoy.
Fantastic. Simon Calder, as always, thank you so much for joining us. There's your little tip on travelling around the Mediterranean. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon right here on TV Cruise Channel. Bye for now.